The Monterey Bay Poetry Consortium presents Brandi Kary and Elliot Ruchowitz-Roberts, recorded live via Zoom on June 13th, 2021.
And our first poet is Brandi Kary. She lives in Pacific Grove. She's a mom, she's an educator. She's taught English and creative writing at Monterey Peninsula College for many, many years. She advises us, which is a nice way to put it. She's had a lot of formal education, and she's got a bunch of degrees and certifications, unquote, but nothing, she says, is compared to what her students have taught her. And I think any of us who have taught can say that we learn as much, if not more, from our students. Brandi's poetry has recently appeared in Red River Review, Virga Magazine, Mom's Always Write, Blue Pepper, Dead Snakes, and Homestead Review. And aside from loving words, Brandi loves to lift heavy things. She's a competitive powerlifter and currently holds world records and national records for bench pressing and deadlifting. So I would urge you to be careful around Brandi. Don't get her agitated. But today it's going to be kinder. She's going to do some heavy lifting for us in the poetic and artistic sense by sharing with us some of her fine work. So Brandi, thanks for being with us, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I just want to first start out by saying I feel so privileged being here today, and I'm so thankful that all of you have kept poetry alive. I'm sure we can all agree that poetry is one of those needed art forms, especially now, given all of our global and societal and world climate. So I just feel personally that poetry allows us to get to the core of humanity. It's one of those raw and real art forms, very unforgiving. So today I decided to choose a theme to kind of cohesively bring my poems together. And I talked to Elliot about this, and I said I was trying to be very ambitious. I'm going to choose the theme of love, which is a very obviously archetypal theme. And it's one of the themes that my students and I always talk about in our classes. I always ask them, why are there so many poems about love? And they always have these brilliant things to say. But what we all sort of agree on is that love lends itself to so many other human emotions, fear, passion, joy, regret, loss. So I think it's a very fluid theme, and it's one that is very vulnerable. So all the poems that I chose today are poems that I feel are unguarded. They kind of get to that root of the human experience. They're my most, I would say, transparent poems. 4 of them are new, so they're in their infancy, which is very vulnerable to test them out in front of a bunch of people that you don't know. But one thing you should notice is that the poems should be cohesive. So a lot of images and metaphors and vocabulary and wording should overlap within the poems, and that's intentional. So I'm going to get started with my first poem. This poem is called, it's titled 1951. It's not the date 1951, it's actually an address of a special space that I tend to go to when I need to be grounded. I'm sure those of you that live in the Central Coast know that there's lots of places to get lost, lots of nooks and crannies to go and kind of find your way. And this is a place I've only been to with one other person. And I've gone there to do all sorts of things, cry, scream at the water, laugh, ground myself. So it's a poem about the love of a space, but it's also about finding a space where you can free yourself and be fully free and let go. 1951. We walk past the path with the old locks. Their stories cling and hang to the rusted gate, and into the clearing where the ground cover bursts with pink and white. Out into the wild sea you reach for me, and watch as the bay spreads its blue back before us and mirrors the impossibility of this moment. We stand here at first in silence, I imagine what others must see as they walk the beach looking up at us, balancing on the edge of ourselves. Uncertainty lingers in the morning air, and we, like children, run toward the unknown, wild and unafraid. I want to name each rock. I want to own each bird. I want you to take me up into your arms and mold me into something other than myself. There is a surrender in your voice. The word love becomes nameless. The word body is turned inside out. The trees laugh at us with their flavorless smiles, and the wind sings us that familiar song. And like all goodbyes, you will soon be gone. Because to love in this world is to fully live. And to live in this world means knowing you cannot always choose who you love or when you love them. This type of sea is agony. This type of water you cannot chart alone. It means at some point you lose. It means parts of you ache unexpectedly. It means this place leaves us with open hands. The doubt becomes a little bird that you let go to the wind, a bird you once held so close to your guarded heart. And to others, this place may not seem like much, but here we can make it possible. Here, like magic, we say, time is just waves repeating themselves. And this is just a morning sunrise. And it is just me alone, writing my own song. And you, my little bird, navigating the early winds. You embrace the yellow sky, and I wait for you. I wait for you to be ready to take flight. I'm dealing with two computers at once, which is a little difficult. So my next poem is one that was published in Homestead Review, and I always like to read one from Homestead Review when Jennifer's in the crowd because she was the editor for many years. And this is a special poem. It's a short one. The title's called Domestic Origami. Ideally, this poem is, I would say, about marital love, but it's really about the day in and day out and kind of falling into the monotonous cycle with somebody and really wanting to kind of get that fire back, but also not knowing how to do that, sort of plotting an escape from it. So domestic origami. This is morning and nothing is new. Here in the whitest hour, our day begins its crease as a thin black line. We reach into the middle of it, armed with the thick fold of our years. We wrinkle like paper dolls and ache for our flat bodies to be filled with something more than this papered lie. And we think there must be a way out of it, a trap door, a flaw in the heavens, a rip in the fabric. But it remains only us, our pulpy exteriors, and that moment we set ourselves on fire and pray for wind. Thank you. I can't hear you clapping, but I can see you clapping. The next one is a new poem. I would say it's a kind of desperate poem. Love is terrifying, and sometimes that pain that comes with that terrifying experience can be a bit comforting. For me, when I think about totally surrendering to someone, it means to literally build a home within them. And that sort of process of compromising and that ebb and flow of going back and forth between, you know, wanting to give it all, but also sort of wanting to guard yourself in that process. So this is a poem about that indecisive and often painful and terrifying process of falling in love with someone and building a home. This poem is called Home. There is no other place I return to again other than this home, this street, imperfect, the oak tree against the heartache of the yellow ocean's gloom. How the day becomes interrupted by the burning of rotting wood and the comforting sound from a bell on the front door as it welcomes you, even where you do not belong. This body is a home. You enter it, climb inside it, find the tenderness of your past cramping in the corners. I scrub and scrub you off of me. I unzip my skin, step outside of it, leave it in the living room floor, watch it in a crumbled pile, denying myself the best parts of you. I tell myself when you leave, I will cut you off like the vibration of a string. I will go mute under the madness of isolation. There are times when you are voiceless like the flaws in the furniture. I want to remedy the sting of your flesh, but the dishes keep piling up in the background, and there are stories I cannot keep. They seep through. Where have you gone again? Too late, too little time, too less of me, too little of you to give. And when you left, I tried to find parts that you did not take up. First, I wrecked the fireplace, but your cinders found their way at my footsteps. And there were days when the house is quiet and your name rested on the empty shelves. The buzz of the fridge plays a symphony, and yes, I dance it alone. When I wake, sunlight ignites each syllable into the open air until each word you ever said to me slips silently through the cracks of the floorboard. Something is always making a noise. In the small space between the ceiling and my thumb, parts of me become untamed, and like fever, I lean into the narrow hallways, intoxicated by your memory. I get lost in the dark closets of my thoughts. Each room has a black wall. I search my body for a light switch. And when the silence becomes too loud, I break the windows. I tear down the small white staircase. I make the doorways flames and smoke until I can no longer breathe. I climb to the top of the roof, give way to the water, and slowly out into the open sky, I fall into your hands, your palms a buffer to all that was lost, because they say it is home, it is here where the heart lays, and I want so badly to believe this lie. Thank you. All right. This next poem was published in Virga Magazine, and it's titled Minutia, which happens to be one of my favorite words ever. It's about the small things that add up to the big details, I guess. When I think about memory and I think about experiencing life with someone, often with memory, you know, when we go back and we revisit those moments, we think about the small things. But when we're in that moment and we're experiencing it with someone, we often, you know, don't take it all in. So this is a poem about just a brief encounter, but it's about the small details that sort of add to that deeper feeling of sort of remorse that we experience when we go back and revisit those moments that we share with someone. So this is called Minutia. Take the tiny ficus among the others, fir, redwood, ash. The details of the day, bark under fingernails, your left shoulder, the color of bone, the color of sky. The woodpecker, holes through gray matter. Take the fig, a purple lung, a catacomb, bulbous and waiting like Eve's deliverance, like Buddha's clarity. All I did was let you feed me the figs. Take the gentle push of your thumb, the way it bore through the silver skin, unmasking a seedy womb, your firm fingers on my tongue, alive like a confession. Like that is what you say to me. Eat it, just like that. So I ate you up and I gave you back to yourself. Right. This next poem is a new one. I'm really fortunate to have a circle of friends in my life who I can pretty much tell anything to and be my true authentic self, and they'll still support me no matter how crazy that is. And if you have people like that in your life, please hang on to them. So this poem was sort of inspired from the idea of how we walk around a lot of the time acting on the surface that we're fine. We all do this, you know, we wear the mask, but underneath it's really just chaotic and we're a total mess. This is a poem about that process, and it's also about never being able to let go of someone. I think many of us have a person that no matter how much therapy we may have had or how many times we've done self-care, we just can't let that person go. And this is a poem about that process of always having this lingering person, even when we move on in our lives, and not wanting to let them go, almost sort of being attached to that pain in a way. So this poem is called Always, with a period at the end of the word. She tells me that when we transform, we're supposed to grieve our former self, that we need to give ourselves permission to allow parts of the old us to die. All I can think about is that I can't let you go. And yes, I have tried to kill you, but your love is a stubborn ghost that drifts right through me. You make once familiar faces strangers. You make an apology feel like a mirror. I take a good look. I am barbaric. Yes, I do that sort of thing. Yes, I did try to set the sofa on fire. That was the last place we made love after all. I pick up a box of sharp expectations. I shake it over my head and tell them that I attempted to dump it out, but thought otherwise. I want to think that love was enough. I want to become content in losing dreams. I want to miss my shadow. I lit sage and manifested the fuck out of the day. Incense burns in the background out of the thoughts, your letters. Hell, I even bought myself flowers. But nothing happened. I read 17 inspirational quotes and still I feel nothing. I go to the water, drown in my reinvention. I become comfortable with the aching. Your words wash up on the shore of a silent afternoon. I keep the door cracked just in case. I tie an invisible rope between us in the sad anticipation you pull back. Big disguise to show your face in the rain. I do not eat. I watch my body grow thin and desperate in the places that you touched. I walk on smoke in a dream. I talk to you in my head, full on conversations. Yes, the weather is not fine, but to just have one more moment with you, to feel your light bend over me and into the green pools of our eyes, delivering me from the dark intersections of my thoughts. I stand here and watch my former self give way. It is everything that I want to die this day, everything but you, always. Thank you. Okay, the next poem was published in a really cool little literary journal called Mothers Always Write. And I love this poem. In fact, the reason why I chose to read it is because I had an opportunity to be with George Lober, who looks like he's in a park right now, and Elliot. We had this great afternoon at the Tor House where we got to read some cool poetry. And I remember sitting there looking out at Jeffers, the tower there, and I was looking at the stones, and I was thinking about Jeffers and Una, you know, gathering the stones from the ocean and bringing them up to the Tor House to build the house. And it reminds me of this poem. This poem is titled Bridge, but it's a poem about partnership, the idea that, you know, that good, hard, hefty work that you might do with somebody, where someone meets you halfway with that energy to build a life, you know, where they kind of complete you in that full circle, that wholeness. So without further ado, this is Bridge. Let us consider the way your arm reaches for me, the distance between wrist and elbow, between grief and longing, the spaces where things left unsaid rest in empty rooms. Consider how the envelope of my ear will rest on the narrow crook of your lip, how we gather loose keys like memory. Consider the locked doors. Let us consider the map, the cartography of making a life, edges to oceans left undiscovered, off the page, the edges of you untouched, the places where water rages on. Wanting to wake you, wanting to take you, there are parts we leave out and parts we throw over. There are ways back. There are ways back. Let us consider this. You know the contortion, the arch of my spine, how it rounds over you, a semicircle, bridging the other half of the whole. We build that refuge, we wreck it down, we make bodies that break open. I take each stone up into this body like an old friend. I take each stone and I place it into you. Stone by stone, I place it all into you. Thank you. So I have two more poems. This poem was published recently in Red River Review. The name of the poem is Amygdala. If you're not familiar with the amygdala, it's kind of a cool part of the body. And I'm sure I'm not doing it complete justice. There's going to be someone out there that knows way more about it, but I'm speaking from the poet's voice here. So from my understanding, the amygdala is a cluster of cells. It's about maybe the size of an almond that's sort of buried in the center of the brain. But what's so cool about it is it correlates all our emotional responses to things. So how we emotionally respond is dependent on this one little part of our body. Speaking about the theme of love, this is more of a poem about severing ourselves from those feelings, to not feel, to kind of cutting ourselves off and not allowing ourselves to give way to those painful feelings or joyful feelings of love. Okay, amygdala. Things fail us. My sister's gray matter, the letter O drawn in the sand, the needle of a compass, remorse, the orbits of moon. Yet we still know the magic of the brain, setting each hemisphere on fire, each fold, each wrinkle, the geographies of thought. I once held the skull of a child in my palm, female, 6 years old, small bullet hole behind her left eye. Fissures web across her head like lightning, fault lines into her body, the flesh failed her. We were so matter of fact about it. You asked me to explore for the exit wound. I traced 2 fingers across the equator of her head. I find nothing. Think of maps not traveled. Think of tunnels and dark caverns where we lose them, spaces where they leave us. The failure is not the thing itself. No, no. The failure is the not knowing how to make an exit wound, and then knowing how difficult it is to forgive yourself after. Thank you. Okay, so my last poem today is my favorite because it's a personal poem, which means I'm terrified right now because it's a vulnerable poem. Thank you, George. There's this analogy I love, and again, I'm not going to do it justice because I don't have a lot of time. It's an analogy about partners who live in this cabin, and the cabin is sort of a metaphor for the life they've built together. And they have 2 options. It's a cold cabin and air is seeping in through the cracks, and they have 2 choices. They can Together, they can mend the cracks in the wall and cover the holes where the cold air is getting in, or they can build a fire and keep the fire going and stay warm that way. So when I think of this analogy, I think about myself and how I love, and I'm more inclined to build the fire, which seems somewhat like the most impractical option of the two. I feel like it's the riskier option by far, but to me, that's the option that is so worth it, is to build the fire. So this is about the risk of love, and it's called How to Build a Fire. And this will be my final poem today. How to Build a Fire. You will say you did it because there was a hunger, because you ran out of options, because you were drawn to the limitlessness of our touch, because love made you open like light, so you surrendered your shadows. They warmed you and your winter edges thawed. You gave way to it like that, the same way a nylon string slips from the hand of a child, his kite taken into the summer air with laughter, like that. Because it is not possible to love anyone else like this, because you once thought it was the tips of the tree reaching for the water, but now you know it was the water rising up to reach the tree. There is no mercy when it comes to hunger. Your body is a wildfire, consuming each of your landscapes, and you will find yourself on a Thursday afternoon in a yellow blaze of light, folding into me like your scars splitting into two. Because now everything is real. The paper wings of a moth through the sunlight on your window, the cinders that reach their golden arms into the night sky, the way the ashes of our memory dance solo around the room. Perhaps you will think you gave too much, because there are always dark and wild and unexpected places between the person you are and the person you become. Because the night air gives way to our laughter, clinging to the doorstep as you navigated the back of my neck. Because each morning I wake and your first thought is of us and will be from this moment on. Because like a song on repeat, each time feels like the first time. Because I told you I wanted to disappear. So I said yes, and you only weakened my disguise, made me who I am. And you will tell me the mountain you carry in your throat is worth it, and the way your green eyes collect the wind every time we say goodbye. But we know better, because this hunger is reborn again and again through the orange autumn window of a sunrise, and we, like fools, we let it all in. We gave way to it, surrendered our guards, and threw it all on the heap. Because we wanted something that was never ours to keep. We hold the fire for just one moment, one unexpected moment. We hold the impossible. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Brandi. That was spectacular.
Thank you.
To take us through love like that. I just I was lost and yet found at the same time. The notion of not knowing how to make an exit wound, you know, and instead you want to build a fire. You're inclined to build a fire. God bless you. And the notion you stand in the dark and watch your former self give way. And then you also surrender to someone and build a home within them. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you for letting me share it. And thank you for being such wonderful listeners.
Well, you're very welcome, and it's great to have you with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, our next poet, continuing this great experience we're having this afternoon, is Elliot Ruchowitz-Roberts. Elliot is the author of White Fire, a collection of poems published in 2017 by the Henry Miller Library's free Ping Pong Free Press. Elliot is a very well-known poet and teacher here in our community. He's co-editor, co-translator of 2 works from the Telugu, which is a language in eastern and southeastern India. Their titles are Sudha, which is nectar, by SheÂ, and the selected verses of Vimana. He's also the co-author of Bowing to Receive the Mountain, essays by Lynn Jensen and poetry by Elliot Roberts. His poetry has appeared in various journals and anthologies. He serves and has served as president of the Robinson Jeffers Torhouse Foundation. Many of us know him, including Brandi, through that experience. He coordinates the foundation's annual prize for poetry and its annual reading series, which is a remarkable, wonderful experience. He also serves as poet in the schools for the Carl Cherry Center of the Arts in Carmel. And in addition, as if this weren't enough in terms of his giving to our community, he presents poetry writing workshops in high schools throughout Monterey County, and he coordinates the annual Monterey County High School Poetry Awards. And those are, Elliot, those have been done through the Monterey Public Library, haven't they?
Actually, it's the Carl Cherry Center for the Arts.
Okay.
That sponsors it, but they coordinate it with the Monterey Public Library, who actually serve as a co-sponsor.
Yeah, I thought so, and I've been there to some of those experiences. So we're blessed with another wonderful, fine poet to share with us his work this afternoon. Elliot, thank you for being with us. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Bob. I'd just like to thank all the people from the Monterey Bay Poetry Consortium, Bob and Jen and John Lowy. Without you, it's wonderful that you've kept this program alive so many years and have, brought to the community so many wonderful poets. And I want to thank Brandi for an absolutely stunning reading, making me a little wary about following you. That was absolutely wonderful, Brandi. Thank you so much. And then just everyone who attended, all the people who are attending, the people I know and the people I don't know. It's wonderful to see you all and to have so many people here. Yeah, as I prepared for this reading, I found the poems I selected, mostly new work, fell into 6 sections, but each section was really part of a whole that I discovered was what it took to live during the COVID-19 pandemic, which, when you get down to it, is really the same as how do we live this one life we are given. Each morning for the last year and a half, I've been reading from Wendell Berry's remarkable Sabbath poems, and these inform and inspire a lot of the poetry I'll be reading today. And I'd like to begin with a series of elegies, acknowledging, as Berry does, that nothing is given that is not taken, and nothing taken that was not first a gift. And another truth articulated in the Sabbath poems: an old man's mind is a graveyard where the dead arise. Jorna White was a dear friend. She was a downwinder, which meant she grew up in New Mexico, downwind of the atomic testing. And so as a result, suffered from anti-immune problems throughout her life. And when these finally became totally overwhelming, when she was on the verge of about to have to be put in a care facility, she made the decision to leave this life. So this is Elegy for Jorna. That's for Jorna White, September 19th, 1948 to July 4th, 2007. You had spent time enough homeless, walking the painful streets of the city that was your body. You found moments of refuge in the inns of friendship and love, paint and canvas, zafu and zabutan, but always pulled out onto those cobbled, crooked streets, the familiar alleyways and crossroads, until all doors refused to open. It was time time to step out of yourself into a new world. When we scattered your ashes, we scattered them to ocean, to wind, to rock, this world where cold sea wind moves the sea daisies and loop into dance, and the brown brittle stalks of wild mustard to sing. The white-crowned sparrows feed on their seeds between bursts of song. Freed from that city of pain, you are home, Jorna. You are home. Another dear friend and fellow poet who's actually read for this series, Marina Romani, reached the same place in her life as Jorna did. Her arthritis became overwhelmingly debilitative, and she didn't want to look forward to a life of being cared for, unable to live on her own. So like Jorna, she decided to leave us. So this is Elegy for Marina, and it's from Marina Romani, June 18th, 1939 to February 17th, 2020. Gnarled, twisted by arthritis, your hand, the softness, the smoothness, the warmth caught me by surprise. I, by your bed in the darkened room, as did your smile, the glow in your eyes, the joy, the love, so fully in the moment, you drew me there too. Just joy, just love, letting go, holding your hand. In contrast to Jorna and Marina, my dear friend Ed Norris, whom I've known for 55 years, clung to life and with an incredible stubbornness and courage, which amazed me, well past the time that I know I personally would have decided to leave. And he just died last year. And so this is called Migration, and it's for Ed Norris, May 31st, 1934, October 27th, 2020. And it has an epigraph from the Zen teacher, Catherine Thanis. We live in the lives of others, sometimes acknowledged, sometimes not. So this is Migration. The gray whales are migrating south, their spouts catching the winter sun, suspended for a moment like shrouded pilgrims before dissolving, drifting away until all that is left is the vastness of the ocean, the reflected sunlight, the wind-driven whitecaps. And I think of you, dear friend, now gone on your final pilgrimage, birth holy, death holy, your ashes to be scattered, given to earth, ocean, wind, that those ghostly spouts should draw to the surface this sense of loss. Yes, we live in the lives of others, even after we are no more than mist, than ash, as you live in me, brought to the surface by migrating whales, their spouts, the fleeting image of an arched back. Sometimes dying can be a gift to the living, releasing us from the weight of caring for someone, returning the love that has been shown them. And that was very true of my dear friend Colin Aylott after he came home from the ICU to be cared for by his daughter, the mother of 3 young children. So this is for Colin Aylott, December 6th, 1941, March 15th, 2021. It's called Return. Home less than 1 day. Settled in the room that was your son's, you get to hold your newborn grandson. The oldest, just 3, shy, stands off to the side. The third, not yet 2, climbs onto your bed to kiss you. Your cat, in silent vigil, sits outside the window on the railing. Your daughter arranges your bed covers, attends to each of your needs, feeds you your favorite meal, shepherd's pie. Once the boys are asleep, she sits by your bed, wondering when, even with her partner there to help, she will find time to sleep. You, however, buoyed by love, drift on your final journey. With your daughter, you go from home to home, where she becomes her mother, then your mother. Your final gift, the return home, the return of all that love. So this past March 1st marked the 11th anniversary of the death of my wife, Tay, and we'd been married for 50 years. So this is 11th anniversary, March 1, 2021 for Tay. This morning, a turkey vulture startled the day awake, sweeping low over your garden, over the flowering plum blossoming, over ceanothus, jasmine, lavender, and rosemary, all blooming, sunlight filling the room, casting shadows on the redwoods, close neighbors, their slender, low limbs reaching out to touch the small house. Beyond them, distant, the ocean, so blue, so vast, so wide, so deep. So I only wrote 3 poems that directly address the pandemic, and one other that does so indirectly. And the 3 poems are haiku, and so in the tradition of reading haiku aloud, I'll read each twice. So this is Coronavirus, March 15th, 2020. In the market, empty shelves. After last night's rain, the meadow so green. In the market, empty shelves. After last night's rain, the meadow so green. Apology to the Ants, that's ANTS. March 19th, 2020. The calla lilies are so beautiful. Who knew you were visiting? Apology to the Ants. The calla lilies are so beautiful. Who knew you were visiting? And then coronavirus, May 3rd, 2020. The meadow glitters, dewdrops catching morning sun. So many dewdrops. The meadow glitters, dewdrops catching morning sun. So many dewdrops. And then how to live during the COVID-19 pandemic. Watch the antlered buck drink from the bird bath, so intent on each tongueful of water, alert to each sound, ears this way and that, until he's lapped the shallow bowl dry. Another way of kind of looking at how to live during the pandemic is phrased this way by Robinson Jeffers in his poem, Carmel Point. We must uncenter our minds from ourselves. We must unhumanize our views a little. This view, I hope, informs the following 3 poems, which were taken from an unpublished manuscript, The Hummingbird Blesses the Day, a Bestiary. So each of the poems focuses on an animal. So, and A was ant. So this is the first poem in the bestiary. And it's called Behold Now the Ant. And the epigraph is from Job 40:15. Behold now behemoth, which I made with thee. Behold now the ant, not the ant of Aesop or King Solomon, evoked to remind us of our human failings, but the ant that has been on earth some 140 million years and will most certainly be here after we have gone extinct. The ant, with some 12,000 species that populate every landmass on Earth except Antarctica. The ant, which instead of being the first animal in this bestiary, could be the whole deal in a formicidae. Army ant, bulldog ant, cornfield ant. I remember walking at night along a trail in the jungles of the Amazon, seeing in the beam of my flashlight a multitude of leafcutter ants, thousands in endless procession, each carrying a stiff, bright green leaf larger than itself along the jungle floor back to its nest. There, the leaves to be processed for food. The beauty and wonder of this world apart from mine, of this intelligence more able to survive in this world than mine. Behold the leaf cutter ant. Which section of leaf will it cut from the tree of your life? Behold the black oyster catcher. Behold the crow and deer, eel and fox. Each will carry off a part of your life. Behold all this beauty, theirs and ours. Behold now the ant made with thee. There's so many creatures like ants that we give so little attention to, and lots of creatures demonized by our thoughts, like the tick, which kind of just makes you feel pretty awful to think about. Yet one day, walking in a meadow of Point Lobos, I beheld the tick. So this is called first tick of the season. Sorry, little friend, no meal here. Wait for the deer. They use this trail too. First tick of the season. Sorry, little friend, no meal here. Wait for the deer. They use this trail too. And then the last of the three poems from this little sequence from the bestiary Cadenza. God, Linnaeus believed, had bestowed upon him the mission to create order out of the chaos of this world by naming and classifying all living organisms. So the wild turkey became Meleagros scalapavo, melodic Latin, which is nothing like the gobble call the tom has been making all spring, first to attract the two hens that seemed to pay him no heed. Then, as the three of them pecked and scratched their way through the tall grass of the meadow, 7 poults bounding and fluttering between them, neither name, Latin or English, does the male or female's justice, nor does naming create order out of disorder. Aquila chrysaetos, the golden eagle that swept low over the meadow, or lynx rufus, the bobcat lurking at its edge, or 4 of the poults now disappeared. And what of my love and me, Homo sapiens, in this our raptorial and lynx-like wildness, unexpected and unanticipated cadenza, this period of grace placed before us by God's surrogate chance, ours to seize with talons, with claws, and we do. So living in a little cottage above a meadow in the mountains of Carmel Valley, my love and I were treated daily to lives apart from ours. And the following poems, each of which is just 4 lines, it's a free verse quatrains, I hope both reveal the nature of grace and honor those lives. And the whole section actually is called Scat. And the first poem is Scat. They're coming, these lives apart from ours, how they nurture us, make us forget ourselves, just this present moment, the joy, the love, then they're going, they're scat, just memory. Spiders. Spider webs hold droplets of morning dew. One thinks of the temples in the jungles of the Yucatan. Wild beauty traps the sun as it rises, catches us in its web. Bees. On the hot days of dry summer, the bees find their way to the rims of the bird baths, unlikely fonts, where each and every bee discerns the holiness of water. Yellow-crowned sparrows. They're back. The yellow-crowned sparrows clustered at the bird bath, their ritual bathing, flurry of feathers, water-taking flight, the gasho drinking, we bearing witness. Hummingbird. How generous the flowers, each day gifting us their color and form, each day yielding nectar to the hovering hummingbird who visits each flower each and every day. California thrasher. From across the meadow, the thrasher's song, prelude to the sun's rising, all those sweet varied notes from deep in the chaparral. Oh, to begin every day with such song. Oh, to begin each day with a song, and let that song be a celebration. So my partner is gifted with a wonderful family, one of whom is here today from Hood River. And I had the good fortune to celebrate the 60th birthdays of two of her cousins. And so the first of poems in celebration is for cousin Dionne's birthday, and where we went to Portland, and the surprise birthday party was going to be at a local bowling alley. And for those of you who do you all know about bowling? Do I have to explain what a 7-10 split is? Okay, so there are 10 pins, that you're supposed to knock down, starting with 1, and the last row is 7, 8, 9, 10. And a 7-10 split is when you knock the pins down, all the pins down except the 7 and 10. And that is almost impossible to knock those two down, right? So that's one of the things you hate is the 7-10 split. A spare is when you knock all 10 down on 2 rolls of the ball, and a strike when you get them all with 1 roll. And if you're right-handed, what you want to do is hit the sweet spot between the 1 and 3 pin to get the strike. So this is called The Art of Bowling for Dionne on her 60th birthday. Select a ball with the proper weight. Check the grip, thumb and fingers not too close or too far from each other. Grasp the ball well. Hold in both hands. Sight the pins. Take 3 steps. The swing of arm, the glide on the smooth floor, release. And then it is out of your hands. The ball spinning and rolling down the lane. A strike now and then a spare. Pins left standing, 7-10 splits. Just like life. All those 7-10 splits, all those pins left standing, but also the spares. And this day, a strike, a solid hit between number 1 and 3 pins, the sweet spot. Yes, so much love. Kind of nice to go to the bowling alley occasionally, right? And then Dionne's sister, our cousin Paula, lives in Carmel Valley, and she's a wonderful artist who has a deep love of the Carmel River and its watershed. And one of her major projects was actually documenting the tearing down of the San Clemente Dam on the Carmel River. And the river was actually totally diverted, put into a new stream bed, very carefully engineered to survive all but 100-year storm. And of course, that winter, there was a 100-year storm, which totally undid everything that had been done, and the river established a new course. This year also, because of the heavy rains early in the season, the Carmel River flooded again at Mission Fields at the mouth of the valley. So this is called the Carmel River this year, 2021, for Paula on her 60th birthday. The Carmel River this year has done what rivers do, follow the dictates of nature, of rock, earth, air, water, flowed to the lowest lying point where it happens, humans live on the floodplain. I can think of no better birthday gift for you who so loves this river, its rapids and eddies, its fierce rush to the sea, like the wild flood that reclaimed the land, signatured it after the dam had been torn down, refusing the path so carefully set for it. You are this river, Paula, and yes, that is what we celebrate on this, your 60th birthday, your fierce rush following a path true to your nature, the eddies, the rapids, the flooding, the breaking through to the sea. If tonight the world ends, Wendell Berry writes in his Sabbath poems, we'll have had this day. And so this last section of poems, which I'll end the reading, is called This Day. 2 miracles. The day starts with 2 miracles, waking, seeing you at the window. The day starts with 2 miracles, waking, seeing you at the window. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th miracles, that I could so love you, that you could so love me, that we are here now. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th miracles, that I could so love you, that you could so love me, that we are here now. Nocturnal travelers. When I wake in the dark, just the joy of night air, cool to the breath and sharp scent of skunk. Nocturnal traveler, then your breath, warmth, bare skin before journey's end, I slip back to sleep. She. Hopping on one foot, the wild turkey won't survive. Still, she leaves water. She. Hopping on one foot, the wild turkey won't survive. Still, she leaves water. So the epigraph for this next poem is actually longer than the poem itself. And it comes once again from Wendell Berry's Sabbath poems. Pair by pair, the swallows again, with tender exactitude, play out their line. That phrase, tender exactitude, is just so incredible. I had to steal it, right? So how we live. This is how we live, with tender exactitude, playing out our lives. This is how we live, with tender exactitude, playing out our lives. And then I'll conclude with the title poem from White Fire, a collection of poetry. Once, as I walked alone in a meadow above a small cove, I saw a pair of white-tailed kites, mid-air, talons locked, wings spread, somersaulting through space, free-falling towards earth, and then, just before impact, release, wings finding purchase in air, the male chasing after the female until she turned, talons spread, reaching for his, and then their descent again, white fire spinning in the sky, as we, my love and I, talons locked, swing each other out into space and back again, falling out of ourselves and back again, falling into the only moment we have, this all-consuming white fire. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Elliot. That was a journey, an amazing journey. Thank you so much. And I love that you treated us to the tender exactitude of your work. It was beautiful. The Carmel River, bowling, 7-10 split. Yeah, I once knew a guy who could take care of those. And you took us through the miracles, through love, through a bestiary. I love your line early on, a turkey vulture startling the day awake, which is so beautiful. And then, of course, the tenderness with which you talked about Marina and holding her hand. And I remember those gnarled, beautiful, soft hands of hers. It was a wonderful, wonderful journey that you gave us. And thank you so much. And it was great to have you. So I guess we'll come back to earth now and catch our breath. It's been a wonderful afternoon. Thank you again, both to Brandi and to Elliot, for what they shared with us and gave us, their new work and other works too. We'll continue this next month on July 11th, another Sunday. Dane Servine and David Sullivan will be our two poets, two more gifted poets. Again, like Brandi and Elliot, making return appearances with us. If in the meantime, excuse me, you'd like any information from John Lowy, please let me know by email. I can give you his phone number. Don't forget, this event is sponsored by the Monterey Bay Poetry Consortium and Old Capitol Books, who are now in a new location on Alvarado, a little bit different from where they were, but they're a wonderful, beautiful little bookstore, and they've been with us and we with them all along. Be sure to like us on Facebook and check out our YouTube channel and subscribe on that channel if you'd like. And thank you so much for being with us from all over the country. It's just terrific the way we're able to gather like this. It's been really a great afternoon. And appreciate our two poets. They've given of themselves today, and they really have made this afternoon for us. So let's give them at least a virtual round of applause here.